It's the 23rd of June of 1916, and you are in hell. You stand in mud and water. The smell is not nice. It's been 4 months, and you've seen your brothers pass from infections and lost shrapnel. Amongst the noise, you hear the French. One of them stands in front of his trench and shouts, "Ils ne passeront pas!" They shall not pass. It seems that that's Nivelle's orders. French artillery thunders, and the men come out of their trenches. By 1915, the mobile warfare of the Western Front had ended, and the failure of executing the Schlieffen Plan meant that Germany had to fight on 2 large fronts now. So the objective of the German Empire had now changed to survive. The current German Chief of Staff, Erich von Falkenhayn, wrote at the time that his hopes were on defeating France through a war of attrition rather than any decisive strike, although he didn't tell anyone at the time. But by the end of 1915, it seemed like the attrition was affecting Germany more than the enemy, so an offensive was needed. The plan was to break through the British defences in Artois, just southwest from Flanders. But for that to work without endless thousands of French reinforcements, they would have to attack the French as well. The target was the RFV, Région Fortifiée de Verdun, around the city of Verdun-sur-Meuse, because it was important not only in strategy but also for the French people. Why, you ask? Verdun, which in Old French means green knoll, played an important role in the history of France. It was Verdun that Attila the Hun failed to seize on the 5th century. It was there that the Treaty of Verdun took place in 1843, marking the division of Charlemagne's empire. It helped defend France during the Franco-Prussian War, and it was Verdun where the French repelled the enemy in the First Battle of the Marne. Falkenhayn believed that after attacking it, the French would send everyone due to the sentiment that the city generated, and that defeating the French reserves could even knock France out of the war. But it would be tough. This fortified region had loads of artillery and 20 major forts, such as the massive fort of Dumont. The plan was to release a large artillery barrage and for the infantry to follow right after. The Germans spent a few months getting ready, under the leading of Crown Prince Wilhelm, the last German and Prussian prince, bringing the heaviest guns and the best men, and waited for the appropriate weather for the sake of accuracy. The French, however, were not ready for this. Not enough faith was put in the RFB. French Chief of Staff Joseph Joffre removed many of the best guns and infantry for other battles like the Second Battle of Champagne. Dumont was relatively undefended and was being used more like barracks rather than a fort. Many officers didn't like this. Colonel Émile Driont was particularly angered at Joffre's decisions. History might prove him right. The 21st of February at 7:15 AM, the highest concentration of artillery guns in history until then, 808 big guns, fired a massive barrage into the RFV and the city. In the span of 10 hours, 1 million shells were fired, and the green fields turned to grey. The unbelievable noise of the barrage could be heard 160 kilometers away, in Boscia, near the Alps. It was baptized as the Symphony of the Devil. It blew up trees and defenses, killing and burying French troops alive throughout the day. At 4 PM, as soon as the smoke cleared, 3 German corps advanced into the region, but they found out that the forts had resisted that whole beatdown. They proved to be stronger than those of Liège on 1914. The soon-to-be a legend, or rather nightmare, the Stoßtruppen, took out many of the forces in the northeastern part of the region. A few French engaged them, but to no avail. The following morning, they surprised them with multiple flamethrowers. How many? 30? 50? Well, 96 heavy flamethrowers were fired around and into the forts, obliterating the defenders. Colonel Driont and his men engaged the Germans. Despite resisting, him and his men were killed in action. On the third day, the village of Saint-Moniaux was conquered, taking many prisoners. Amongst them was Lieutenant Colonel Bernard. Once, the Kaiser Wilhelm II visited the camp he was in and spoke to him. Bernard said to the Kaiser, "You will never take Verdun." Although Joffre pointed out that Verdun wasn't crucial strategically, the French Prime Minister Briand said that the psychological effects of losing Verdun for the French people and the general morale were unacceptable, so the Second French Army was called into Verdun. From the fifth day, after piercing through the northern trenches and taking Beaumont, the casualties escalated into the thousands, and for the first time in a year and a half since the first Battle of the Marne in September of 1914, it was bloody mobile warfare again. Beaumont was invaded, but it lacked defenders to the point that surrendering without bloodshed was the only rational choice. Losing that fort really affected morale, for it was the core of the defense of Verdun. Although taking the northeastern portion of the RFV was easy, that wasn't the case for the northwestern, where the French managed to successfully hold Côte 3 or 4. The Germans noticed something about Beaumont a bit too late. It was a trap. Direct artillery strikes provoked blackouts. They were cut from outside supplies due to constant invasions. They would have to starve, get dehydrated, and dwell where they defecated. Most of the French area was surrounded by enemy territories, so there was only a single road that could bring supplies and men. It was referred to as La Voie Sacrée, the sacred road. If a truck were to break down, it would be immediately pushed out of the way. March was productive for Germany. Early April saw some failures on their part, and in early May, the current French General Pétain was promoted to General of the Group of Central Armies, and someone else took command of the Second French Army, Robert Nivelle, who had been quite a menace in previous battles, for which he was promoted. The 8th of May, Fort Douaumont suffered an accidental ammo explosion. It is believed that it was caused by soldiers trying to heat coffee with flamethrowers. I'm not making this up. Nivelle used his chance and ordered Douaumont to be attacked. Although German reinforcements helped repel the French, the whole ordeal weakened the defenders. In late May, a German offensive aimed to take the village of Fleury and Fort Vaux. The latter was led by Major Renala. His men showed heroism and endurance despite the extremely limited resources, fighting inside the fort itself. But the 7th of June, he had to surrender the fort when his men were on the verge of death by dehydration. As a well-deserved sign of admiration, Crown Prince Wilhelm gave him an officer's sword to show his respect. After gruesome fighting in the mud and flooded fields of Verdun, the Germans managed to capture Fleury the 23rd of June. Upon finding out, General Nivelle gave an unquestionable order: "You will not let them pass, my comrades," which became a war cry: "Ils ne passeront pas," they shall not pass. The battle turned out to be longer and longer. The Russian Brusilov offensive was wreaking havoc in the Eastern Front, one of the largest battles of the war. The massive counterattack of the British in the north, the Battle of the Somme, started the 1st of July. J.R.R. Tolkien served in this battle, and properly, but disease led to him being sent back to England. And so, the 3 largest battles in history until 1916 were raging simultaneously. Hygiene was not ideal in the flooded trenches and forts. Some of the best soldiers died, not on their feet, but lying down, by infections and disease. And inside the forts, many had to lick the humidity on the walls to survive. The forests and fields died, where many frequently stomped on the bodies of their comrades or could sense their smell from their trench. It is both ironic and sad that a place once named Verdun now looked like a post-apocalyptic landscape. The French rotation turned into a 10-day one, so 70% of the French army left Verdun at some point. Nivelle earned some fame due to his artillery strategies of aiming at the enemy infantry rather than the enemy artillery or defenses when supporting French infantry attacks, which proved effective the 24th of October when the French retook Fleury and Fort Douaumont once and for all. But he did gain the fame of sending endless troops into his infantry charges. From November, the French went on the offensive, retaking fort after fort, town after town, at the edge of a bayonet or the firing of their guns, in anger and frustration. The battle ended the 18th of December. The result? Well, it was said they shall not pass, and they never did. 303 days long, it was the longest and arguably most brutal battle of World War I, and one of the longest in the history of humanity. The toll was around 750,000. Although France suffered more attrition in regards to casualties, they won anyway. Falkenhayn lost his job, as Ludendorff and Hindenburg took his role. Nivelle became the chief of staff of the French army, and his order is likely to have inspired Tolkien to write Gandalf's famous line, but it definitely carried out to be a French war cry and adapted by revolutions and anti-fascist movements all around the world. The veterans of Verdun, despite being victorious, remembered more of the trauma and the smell rather than the glory. The battle has been brought to cinema by movies like Verdun Vision de Story from 1928 or A Very Long Engagement from 2004. The real-life hellish horrors of Verdun fuel the survival horror gameplay of the game Conscript, where there doesn't seem to be any monsters, apart from when you kill a German soldier and see pictures like this one. The Battlefield 1 expansion, They Shall Not Pass, plays a nice tribute to those who fought there, showing the ugliness of the battle with stunning quality, ironically, but no other project makes for the accuracy of the World War I series, which started with Verdun, which is a precise depiction of the places, uniforms, and the trench warfare that really happened. And that's it, now you know that hell was once a place on Earth. Is this the part in which Diego throws me out of the screen? 3, 2,